Hello, I'm Gertie Spencer. I'm a member of the board at the Heritage Museum of Montgomery County here in Conroe. And today we're here visiting with Don Buckalew in his dealership in his office. And he's going to tell us a lot of things about business, childhood, and school and so forth. And we're so glad you agreed to be recorded.
Thank you.
And what we need to know first is, when did you come to Montgomery County?
Well, I actually was born in Houston. My mother and dad were living in Magnolia at the time at Grogan Cochran Lumber Company, and so I came to Conroe as a very young, to Magnolia as a very young
New baby.
New baby, and I was that was my introduction to Montgomery County and to Magnolia, and that's where I was raised. Went to school there, first through the 12th grade, and lived there. Went to Baylor University after that, and then went to work for Stanley Oil and Gas Company.
Wow. Well, tell us what your mom and daddy, when did they come to our county, and what did your dad do?
My dad was originally with the Grogan family in Tammany, which of course is close here to Conroe.
That's the sawmill that's now Woodlands.
And that sawmill was on Tammany, and the Grogan Cochran Lumber Company owned lots of land down in that area, but they relocated a mill at that particular time over to Magnolia, and that became Grogan Cochran Lumber Company there. Later on, they had a couple of other mills in Montgomery County. They had one here in Conroe called Gladstone Lumber Company, and one 7 miles out of Conroe at Cal Spur, I believe, was a switch out
Is
there.
that on 2854?
That's on now 2854, and that mill was Timber Lumber Company.
Okie dokie. And your dad, you said, started out in our county at Tammany.
He did.
And was he in management then?
He was. I'm not sure exactly what he was doing then, but I know that his part of the management part of the company was running their sawmill commissaries. And he had managers in all three of the sawmill commissaries, and we lived at the one in Magnolia, and he was there more than he was any other commissary, but he used to come check on the other two a lot of times on Sunday, and my mother and I would ride over here with him, and he would talk to the managers and see how things were going. And
so he was over more than one commissary?
He was.
On all of them?
Yes.
In this area?
Yes.
Okay. And you grew up on the mill site?
I did. Grew up at the sawmill in Magnolia. We were about a mile from the little community of Magnolia, of which had probably anywhere from 400 to 500 people, I guess, at the time. And there was a lot of ranching, lots of people that raised farming, and people that raised livestock and other agricultural animals. And I know at the sawmill commissary store, there was quite a few of those folks would bring their vegetables in there and sell them to the sawmill store, and they'd sell those to the public. They even butchered their own meat at the time. It was a man named Fred Brantley, who Brantley was a old time name in the Magnolia area, and he would raise the stock and then slaughter them, and they would then sell those animals in the sawmill commissary. They had a market, and it was known, the market there was known for really fresh meat, and people that would come out to the area there for the weekend
Up to the mill and get it.
would stop at the sawmill commissary store to buy the fresh meat. And that was that's the way we got to know some of the people from out of Houston and other areas that would come, and that's where my daddy started me out working. When I was 12 years old, I worked in the sawmill commissary selling soda water and ice cream and candy.
Oh, well, that wasn't a bad job.
And that wasn't a bad job, except I didn't get anything free. I had to pay for it.
Oh, wow. Well, you told me you had delivered ice also, you and a friend.
As I grew up, and into high school, while we had to deliver ice because at that time, when you talk about an ice box,
It was
an ice box. And a lot of the sawmill families had ice boxes. And the sawmill had a truck that had an ice house that they stored their ice in. And every morning we would take ice around and deliver it to the people that wanted it. And I did that along with a friend of mine when we were in high school and old enough to drive. I think we were probably driving that truck on the sawmill grounds before we were of age to do it. but we never had a wreck, and it worked out real well for us. And we did that, but it was quite different than what we have nowadays.
Well, tell me about the layout of a mill. The mill mechanical part was at one area of the mill?
The sawmill had, of course, the part that they actually manufactured the lumber. And then they had the dry kilns, and the dry kilns were in another area close to where the wood was cut at the sawmill. And then they had big storage sheds where they stored this lumber. And they used trucks to ship it wherever they wanted to take it to. They had the trucks that they owned their own trucks and hauled their own lumber.
Did they ever put it on the railroad since you were close to the railroad?
So far as I know, they did bring in at one time, they brought in logs by rail.
By rail, okay.
But they never, so far as I know, they never shipped anything by rail. It was all shipped by truck. And most of it was actually taken to Houston. Some of it was dispersed out into the other parts of Texas, but most of it was sent into Houston, I think.
Well, tell me about the housing. I know management lived in one area.
They did.
Closer to...
Well, management lived in an area, there was a we called there was a black community, there was a Spanish, Mexican community, and then there, of course, was the white areas. We were next to each other, but they were, each had their area. The black community had their own Baptist church. The Spanish community, if they, I don't remember exactly if they had a church, but there was a sawmill church that was Alethea Baptist Church, where most of the white people went at that time. And Mr. Will Grogan, who actually lived in Atlanta, would come to our
Atlanta, Texas,
yeah, and would come to the sawmill several times a year, and he was a preacher, and he would preach in the Sawmill Baptist Church there, the Alethea Baptist Church, and I remember one time this friend of ours, same one that we hauled ice with, we had gotten permission from our mothers that we didn't have to stay for church that day because Brother Will Grogan preached too long. and so we had permission from our mothers that we could leave after Sunday school and we didn't have to stay for church. But lo and behold, Brother Will Grogan that morning decided that he had some things that he wanted to show during his sermon. Well, he came out and got Max Goodson and I to ask us to hold these for him as he needed them in his sermon. So we didn't get to leave. We had to stay there for the whole sermon. And our mothers told us that God punished us because we didn't want to leave. But anyway,
some mills in our area had a small building for a doctor to come and visit. Did you have?
We did that too. We had a doctor there. There was a Dr. Coker that was there at one time. He later moved his practice to Tomball. And then there was a Dr. Morris, was the last one that actually had an office on the sawmill grounds. He had a son by the name of George Morris that was an attorney here in Conroe.
Right.
Yeah.
But they didn't office there. They came on a certain day or around.
No, they had an office.
They stayed there.
They stayed there. They lived there on the sawmill grounds.
Oh, well,
and they had an office there. There also was a dentist in Houston by the name of Alfred Cochran. And Alfred Cochran would come to the sawmill on a certain number of days a month and would be there for any dental work that anybody needed.
Well, were those benefits, or did the people have to pay for
So far as
that?
I know, the doctor was a benefit. I don't know if my parents ever paid anything for that or not. The dentist from Houston, I think there probably was some charge to that, but I think most of the doctor visits there were paid for by the company.
By the company.
He was on
Well,
salary from
some
the
mills
company.
had
Yeah.
that as a benefit,
Yeah.
others had it just
I think they did.
for
yes.
convenience.
Yeah.
And tell us about the housing. You had the management, you said, in one area. And
Yes.
that differed
Well,
from the other workers.
the management was pretty much. I mean, there wasn't a real separate area except there was 4 or 5 houses which are across a railroad track, but it wasn't strictly management that lived there. But there was an area that was I know we lived next door to and in an area where there was a lot of people that worked at the sawmill and around some of the people that were foremen and things like that. We had several different foremen that lived next to us. Except my dad had some people that worked in the store that lived in the same area that we lived in.
Okay. And tell me how the mill paid their workers.
They paid with coupons,
Coupons, okay.
and they'd give coupon books. I wish I had one of those, but I don't.
Oh, I wished you would too.
And but we had they paid with coupons, and then those coupons could be spent in the sawmill commissary. I believe it was every 2 weeks you could cash those in for cash.
Ooh.
You could cash.
Some
those
mills
in.
wouldn't allow that.
Yeah,
other
they
than
did. Every couple of weeks you could do that. Now the coupon, they paid off every day. In other words, they paid coupons every day
wow.
for the day before,
That's a little different than other mills.
and so they would come. Usually the spouses would come, the wives would come and pick up the pay on a daily basis.
Well, you told us about the fresh vegetables and the meat. What other things did they have at the store, at the commissary?
Had everything
They
from
have
a
work
straight
clothes?
pen to a casket.
Oh, wow. Work clothes,
They had
tools.
work clothes, they had shoes, they, during Christmas season, they'd have Christmas toys and things like that. In fact, the last casket that Sawmill sold was bought from Klein Funeral Home in Tomball. At one time there, they stocked a casket or two. And then they quit doing that. If they needed one, they would buy it from Klein Funeral Home in Tomball. And that last casket that the sawmill commissary sold, I hauled it in a truck
Oh, wow.
from Tomball
Oh, dang.
back to the sawmill.
Or one of the workers,
Yeah.
or one of their
Yes,
family?
well, I don't remember
That's
who
okay.
it was for, but I did haul that last casket.
Well, you've had a varied background in your work.
I have. From delivering ice and selling ice cream, soda water, and candy to hauling caskets. But the sawmill, they sold everything. You talk about now in a hardware store, you go, there was all kind of hardware there because the sawmill in logging and in everything that they did there, they used lots of different hardware type items
Right.
and feed to feed mules.
Mules, right.
And so they had a lot of hay and they sold feed to
Pots and pans and that sort of thing,
yeah,
too.
They sold a lot of feed and hay to farmers and ranchers in the area.
Okay, we've heard about your work. What'd you do for fun?
Well,
Did you go swimming? They had a mule pond in Magnolia.
well, they had a log pond.
Okay,
It had a log pond, and of course that's where the logs were put. They were unloaded into the log pond, and they did that, and then they had another area there that held some water, and they held that water primarily in case the sawmill caught on fire, which it did at one time, so that they'd have a supply of water.
Oh, we hadn't talked about the whistle. The
No,
whistle
we have not.
scheduled everything,
No,
didn't it?
that's right. Everything was scheduled by whistle. The
Steam whistle.
The sawmill had worked 2 10-hour shifts each day, and that's where they started and stopped by this sawmill whistle. And it blew in the morning, and again at lunch, and after lunch, and then in the evening to end one shift, and another time to start the other shift, and it was pretty well.
And then they had a code in case of an emergency,
Oh yes,
fire or
yeah, and the sawmill did burn one time, and it was a heck of a fire. They were out of commission for a short period of time. I don't remember exactly how long, but they brought in a small sawmill, a man by the name of Eugen, that was from Frankston, Texas. Brought a small, which was a portable sawmill in. And he set it up on the sawmill grounds in the area there by the kilns, because the kilns were not, the kilns nor the lumber storage sheds were not destroyed in the fire. It was just the sawmill.
they call that a peckerwood.
Yeah,
Peckerwood
sawmill.
Yeah.
And they operated there for several years while they were getting plans together and before they built the sawmill back.
Okay.
And in fact, a man by the name of Eugen, and he had a son named Joe, and Joe ended up staying in the area, married a girl from Magnolia, and in fact, he still lives in Magnolia today.
But as a child and then as a teenager, what did they have a theater? That you didn't have a theater in
Early on, we'd go to the theater in Tomball.
Tomball.
And,
Skating rink would come by maybe.
A skating rink would come by periodically. It was a portable skating rink.
Came to Conroe too.
Of which the football players were not allowed to skate.
Oh.
Our coach, we were trying to learn how to skate. Our coach came by and stopped and came over and wanted to know how many football was looking around, see how many football players were on skates. He called us all over and said to get off the skates. He couldn't afford any injuries.
Yeah, broken arms.
Turned ankles and broken arms and things
Well,
like
I thought
that.
maybe it was the little kids didn't want those big guys on there.
No. And he would not let us skate. We could not do that because he's afraid we'd turn an ankle. Or
Well, did you do sports in junior high as well as high school?
We didn't have sports in junior high then. We had sports in high school. When I was in junior high, I believe we were still playing 6-man football. And I think it was long about the time, maybe I was in the 8th grade, that they started 11-man football. And when Magnolia was playing 11-man football, the Willis was still playing 6-man. Montgomery did not play football at all. Spring down here didn't play football at all, and I don't think New Caney or Splendora played football then. But Magnolia played 11-man football and started out somewhere along about 19, I'm going to say 40, could have been 47, but I think maybe around 1948, 49.
And then basketball and
Basketball,
what,
we had
track?
basketball, we
Track
had
team?
track. Girls played volleyball, and later on they played basketball, but not when a little bit when I was in high school. But
Did you fish or hunt or anything like that?
I didn't fish or hunt. Some of the boys around there did. I did not do any fishing or hunting. My dad had me working in that sawmill commissary.
Poor thing.
That was what I was doing. And incidentally, talking about nowadays, what was about the Sawmill Baptist Church. Of course, they didn't have baptistries back then. And if you were baptized in a creek.
Right.
And that's where I was baptized.
Oh, really?
Was in a creek outside of Magnolia.
I'll be darned.
Yeah. The Baptist church at the Sawmill and the Baptist church in Magnolia at one time had the same pastor. He'd preach
Yeah,
at one place and then go preach it at the other place. And when they'd have a revival in the summer, there was a big pasture area that was between where the sawmill was and where the little community of Magnolia was. They'd have a tent revival.
Right.
And
Right. Okay, we have you through elementary, junior high, and high school, and everybody knows, if they know you, they know where you went to college. So tell us about your Baylor days.
Well, when I went to Baylor, I actually was offered a football scholarship to either Wharton Junior College or Howard Payne College in Brownwood. And my dad he was not for that, and he told me to pick out a Southwest Conference school that I wanted to go to, and he thought he could be able to handle my educational funds, and that I needed to concentrate on getting an education and not playing any more football. And that's what I started to say he demanded that I do. I don't know that he demanded it, but he told me that's what I needed to do. And I had sense enough to follow his instruction. So the preacher there at that particular time was a guy by the name of Russell Salmon. And Brother Salmon took me to Baylor. He had gone to Baylor, and he took me up there and said he thought that'd be a good place for me to go to school. And he took me up there, and I liked it, so that's where I ended up going, was to Baylor, and that was why, just because I ended up deciding to go late, and I couldn't get in a dorm at Baylor, so I lived in a private home that took in some Baylor boys, and I did that, and was right close to campus, and my mother and dad would not let me have a car there when I was a freshman. Told me I had to make my freshman grades, and if I did good then, they'd think about getting me a car for my sophomore year. Well, just so happened that my dad wasn't quite sure he wanted to get me a car after my freshman year, but my mother decided she was, so between them they decided
They worked it out, huh?
They worked it out, and I got a car then on my birthday when I had finished my freshman year. My birthday was June 24th, so I got a car then for my freshman year. For my sophomore year. Prior to that, as a freshman, when I rode back and forth from Waco to Magnolia, I came with a guy by the name of Gerald Cannon. And he was a ministerial student at Baylor, and he preached at the Magnolia Church and lived in Tomball. His home was a Tomball. And so he'd pick me up on Monday morning about 5 o'clock in the morning, and we'd go back to Waco.
Wow, okay. Military. I know you were in the reserves at one time.
I was in the Naval.
What period was that? Was when you were in college?
Well, that was when right after I finished high school, and I finished high school in 1952. So it was the summer of 1952 that I joined the Naval Air Reserves, along with, there was a bunch of guys here from Conroe that was in that unit, and there was a lieutenant commander here by the name of Bob Laws that helped get all these boys into the Naval Reserves, and we made drills in Dallas at the Naval Air Station there in Grand Prairie once a month, and we did that for we made the drills for 8 years, but now we changed from time. We changed from Grand Prairie to Ellington Field and Hobby Airport, then into New Orleans. But we met at different places over the 8 years.
So you were in that
but I
unit
was in
for
that
eight
unit for 8 years.
8
yes.
years. And after that, I know you married because you got 4 kids.
Oh,
Tell
yeah,
us about your
yeah.
children.
Well, my children, I have Debbie, which is the oldest daughter. Then I have 2 boys. Donnie is next to Debbie, and then Denny. And then we have a younger daughter by the name of Deanne. Donnie and Denny are here in the business with me now. Debbie's a banker here in Conroe. and Deanne is a school teacher.
Right.
So we're all four of those children are here.
And we don't have to guess where they went to
And
college.
they all went to Baylor University, and I think, well, in fact, as you well know, we're all proud of our Baylor University education.
Of course. And now your grandchildren are there and coming
We
over.
have 5 grandchildren there now. Have one at the University of Texas.
Whoa,
but,
how did that happen?
Well, her stepdad now is a University of Texas grad, and I think he might have had
twisted.
something to do with that. But she's doing well at Texas, and far as we pretty much in our family have a lot of schools covered. We have a daughter-in-law that's an Aggie. We have a son-in-law that's a Red Raider. We have 2 son-in-laws that are University of Texas graduates, and but we have a daughter-in-law that's a Baylor graduate.
Well, it's so wonderful they're all here and you can enjoy them.
They all are. They all live in this area, and
Right.
It's fun to have them here. And I don't know. Sometimes it's fun to have the children here. It's fun to have the grandchildren here.
Right. Okay, we're through college and you start your business world, and you went to work for a corporation.
I did. When I first got out of Baylor, I went to work for Stanley Oil and Gas. And I realized after a few months there that maybe that wasn't what I needed to do or wanted to do. I had a goal of wanting to own my own business. And so I got an opportunity to go to work for a Ford dealership in Tomball called Hall Motor Company, and it was spelled Hohl. And I went to work there trying to learn something about the business and as far as selling automobiles. And I was there 6 months, and they lost their sales manager and had several other salesmen, and they asked me if I wanted to be the sales manager. Well, I said, sure, I'll try it. Well, I did. I stayed there 3 years. Then I went to Humble and worked for Wayne Robbins at Robbins Chevrolet and Oldsmobile dealership, and stayed there 5 years before I had got the opportunity that W.B. Weisinger offered me to come here. He was a friend of my dad's, and that was the reason I got the opportunity to come and be a part.
They kind of conspired, didn't
They
they?
did. They did conspire. My dad wanted me to come here prior to my actually making the move. He wanted me to come a couple of years earlier. Mr. Weisinger had tried to hire me as a sales manager here, and I was happy and humble, and I really hated to leave at that time, but Mr. Weisinger later on insinuated to my dad that he would probably give me an opportunity to come and may sell me some interest in the store. So he called me in May of 1964, and wanted me to come talk to him, said that he'd like to sell me 50% interest and turn the management of the store over to me. So I actually came. It didn't take me long to get here once he wanted to talk to me, so I came over and talked to him, and he told me how he wanted to structure it, and he didn't want to do it till the end of the year. So I was here as a 50% owner effective January the 2nd, 1965.
Very good. Well, that started your business career here, and I know how active you have been in our community. And Winifred was also active there, and Lions Club being the probably
Right.
biggest spot in your
Yeah.
community life.
Well, I don't.
You don't think that? Okay.
Well, Lions Club has been a big part of my life, in the fact that my dad was a Lion in Magnolia years ago, and he got me to join the Lions Club right out of college. But later on, with some encouragement from some people throughout the state, I had served as a district governor in this particular district, and then later on served as an international director, and which that was a big part of my life. And I'm still active in Lions Club, working on a state level, not on an international level anymore. But that has been a big part. But here in Conroe, being on a school board, being on a hospital board, and just doing different things around the community, being extremely active in the Montgomery County Fair Association when it was
and also Houston's.
Yeah, and when it was reorganized, from being a committee in the Chamber of Commerce back in 1977 and 78. Why, I became president of the Fair Association, was asked to get it organized and going, and remained in that office for 4 years. And then later on, I really never understood exactly how I got so active in the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, but
Well, they saw you were doing a good job in Montgomery,
and,
this county.
So I was on a committee here with the stock show, but then later moved up in the stock show organization, and it's I mean, very appreciative of the opportunities that I've had to serve.
Right. And you've served a long time and with great dignity in the Chamber of Commerce.
I did. We've had a very successful Chamber of Commerce here over a long period of time, and it was fun to be a part of it, and it's fun sometime now that I get actively involved in something with the Chamber, and there's always somebody here trying to raise money, as you well know, and I've had an opportunity to be associated with a lot of good organizations and a lot of good people. People make a community.
Right.
And that's
Right.
what makes Conroe great,
Right.
is the people that are here.
Well, very good. You don't have any secrets you want to tell us?
Well, I don't guess. I probably have some I shouldn't tell, so I'll just remain
We hadn't talked
silent.
about your church involvement only when you were a child, and you were real
Well,
active in
I'm
Baptist
active
church.
in the First Baptist Church here, been on the building committee several times, on the current building committee, and our First Baptist Church has gone through some growing pains and gone through some building projects, and I was chairman of one when our sanctuary was refurbished about 15 years ago, and I was co-chairman of one when we did some work, and now I'm on a building committee of one that's going on with some refurbishing and some
Their fellowship hall.
fellowship hall, doing some things
Yeah.
like that now.
And I know you have enjoyed, you bought some property in the hill country.
In Fredericksburg.
So you're spending a little bit of time out of Montgomery County.
We spend some time, about 10 days a month now, in Fredericksburg, and we enjoy doing that. There's a few people from Conroe, and you know some of them that live out there. Jack Clark Jr.,
Yeah.
Jack Clark III, I guess, Little Jack as we call him, and his wife Carolyn live out there. Paul Pitts and his wife live out there.
Ann Moore's daughter lives, in Johnson City.
That's right. There's several other people from Conroe that live out there.
Well, when you're out there, you get together with any of them?
We do get together with them. Had dinner with several of them here last week, and then we've been able to meet some people from that area, and we know some people that we've met through the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo that have places out there.
Well, we need to back up a little bit. We didn't talk about the dealership as much as we should have. I know you, when you came here, the building was on Fraser that you went into business with the
Right.
Weisinger.
We were on Fraser, close to Conroe Bank, right across the street from Conroe Bank. And Mr. Weisinger had owned that property for a long time. When I bought into the dealership, the 50% interest, he retained ownership of the property. In fact, that property, of course, is still there, and it's some other businesses in it now, but his daughter, Winifred Ann, still owns that
Right.
property. And then we moved, after I'd been here a couple of years, up to 1717 North Fraser and built a new dealership there and stayed there for 42 or 3 years. And then we moved here on the interstate, 1100 Interstate 45, and we moved here in December of 2008. And we've been here 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13, and so we've been here 4.5 years, and business has been very good. It's been a good move for us. We've been very fortunate over the years to maintain a good group of employees. In fact, one employee that was here when I came to the store was Jimmy Stoll. And you knew him,
Yeah, I did.
James, you knew him. But Jimmy Stoll was here, and he remained 50 years.
I'll be darned.
When he decided to retire, it was really a little past 50 years. But when he got to 50 years, he wanted an S-Series truck that we manufactured at the time, and we gave him a truck.
Oh, how neat. That's better than a gold watch, isn't it?
Yeah, that was, he was very happy and pleased about that, and we've had a lot of other longtime employees that have stayed here over a period of years, but.
Well, you became sole owner when Mr. Weisinger died.
He died in June of 1973, and I bought his wife, Lillian, and their daughter, Winifred Ann. I bought them out of the store along about, I think it was February or March of 1974. And we've operated since then. We owned the property together there at 1717 North Fraser for a while, and then later on I
bought it from
the
them.
property.
Well, it's my pleasure to learn more about you than I knew about you, and Conroe and Montgomery County is proud to have you.
Well, thank you.
As a leader.
I'm happy to be here. Enjoy living here. It's a great community.
And I hope we live a lot longer.
I do too.
It's questionable, isn't it?
Gertie, we don't have as far to go as we've been.
Right. Well, thank you for having us today.